Heathcliff's Return, Deconstructing the Gentleman as a Weapon. Welcome to the Art Director's Debrief. In our last session, we left Wuthering Heights in a state of fragile, deceptive calm. Catherine Earnshaw made a choice not of the heart, but of the head. She chose comfort, status, and societal approval. She chose Edgar Linton and became the mistress of Thrushcross Grange. For 3 years, this fragile peace holds. For 3 years, the ghost of Heathcliff is just that, a memory, a fever dream from a wild past. But Emily Brontë, the master architect of this emotional tempest, does not deal in peaceful resolutions. The events of Chapter 10 are not a reunion, they are a detonation. Heathcliff's return is the arrival of a meticulously crafted weapon aimed directly at the heart of the world that cast him out. Today, we will deconstruct this return. We will analyze how Heathcliff transforms himself into a vengeful gentleman, how Catherine's identity fractures under the pressure of her impossible desires, and how the civilized world of the Lintons proves utterly incapable of understanding the primal force it has just invited through its doors. This is the art of infiltration. When Heathcliff reappears, the description is precise. He is tall, athletic, and well-formed. His manner is dignified. He has acquired education, and his bearing suggests he has seen the world and commanded men. On the surface, he is the perfect romantic hero returned from exile, a Monte Cristo figure ready to claim his prize. But Brontë immediately undermines this image. Nellie Dean, our ever-watchful narrator, notes the truth in his eyes. A half-civilized ferocity lurked yet in the depressed brows and deep-set black eyes. This is the key to his entire character arc. The gentleman is a costume. It is camouflage. Heathcliff has not been civilized. He has merely learned the language of his enemy. He spent 3 years not erasing his true nature, but forging it into a more effective tool. His wealth, his fine clothes, his polite bows, these are not signs of assimilation, they are instruments of war. Think of it from an artistic standpoint. Brontë could have brought Heathcliff back as a richer, more powerful version of his old self, a brute with gold. But she chose to make him a gentleman. Why? Because it is infinitely more insidious. As a savage, he could be dismissed, barred from entry. As a gentleman, he must be invited in. He uses the very rules of the society that rejected him, rules of etiquette, property, and class, to dismantle it. He is a Trojan horse, built of polished manners and filled with hate. His intelligence is now directed not at surviving the Moors, but at psychological warfare. He complements Edgar's library, he speaks of his travels, he performs the role expected of him, and in doing so, he exposes the complete inadequacy of Edgar's world. Edgar, a man of books, laws, and quiet affections, is fundamentally unequipped to deal with a man who operates on an entirely different plane of existence. Heathcliff's transformation is a brilliant artistic choice that raises the stakes from a simple love triangle to a clash of civilizations. The raw, amoral, passionate world of Wuthering Heights versus the genteel, ordered, and ultimately fragile world of Thrushcross Grange. If Heathcliff's return is an act of infiltration, Catherine's reaction is the resulting explosion. Her joy is not simple happiness, it is a complete psychological break from the reality she has constructed. Brontë describes it as a manic, almost violent ecstatic. Her cheeks were flushed and her eyes sparkling, Nellie notes. She was Catherine, in all her beauty and her animation. For 3 years, Catherine has been playing a role, Mrs. Linton, Lady of the Manor. She has suppressed the most fundamental part of her soul, the part that famously declared, "I am Heathcliff." His return doesn't just remind her of what she lost, it proves that her new identity is a sham. She is a queen in a kingdom she doesn't belong to, and the return of her true counterpart makes the charade unbearable. Her famous line, "I shall be killed by inches if she cannot see Heathcliff," is not hyperbole. It's a diagnosis. The attempt to live a divided life, to be both the respectable Mrs. Linton and the wild soulmate of Heathcliff, is literally destroying her. She wants to possess both worlds, a desire that is pathologically selfish and quintessentially human. Artistically, Catherine's joy is portrayed as something terrifying. It frightens Nellie, it horrifies Edgar. It is not the gentle reunion of parted lovers, it is the frenzied delight of a soul who has been starving and is suddenly presented with the only food it can truly digest. She immediately reframes her entire world around him, alienating her husband in his own home without a second thought. This isn't a flaw in her character, it is her. Brontë is showing us that Catherine's love is not a nurturing force. It is a consuming, possessive, and elemental power that cannot coexist with social convention. His return forces her to confront the catastrophic consequences of her own choice, and the pressure causes her carefully constructed persona to shatter. The final piece of this tragic tableau is the reaction of the Lintons. Both Edgar and Isabella represent the civilized world, and both are dangerously, almost willfully blind.
Edgar's response is one of cold, polite displeasure. He tries to manage the situation through propriety. He invites Heathcliff to stay, he offers him tea, he engages in strained conversation. He is following the rules of his class. But these rules are meaningless. He is trying to fight a forest fire with a teacup. He cannot comprehend the depth of the bond between Catherine and Heathcliff because it operates outside his understanding of love, which is rooted in affection, kindness, and social compatibility. He sees Heathcliff as a rival for his wife's affection, not as the other half of her very being. This failure of imagination is his fatal flaw. Isabella's blindness is even more profound. At 18, she is a walking personification of romantic delusion. She doesn't see the ferocity in Heathcliff's eyes. She sees a dashing, mysterious hero from a Gothic novel. She is infatuated not with the man, but with her own idealized projection of him. Catherine's cruel, taunting exposure of Isabella's crush is a pivotal moment. When she warns Isabella that Heathcliff is a wolf, she is for once telling the absolute truth. But Isabella, steeped in the naivety of her sheltered world, hears this not as a warning, but as a romantic challenge. Brontë uses Isabella as a powerful tool. She is the audience for the story Heathcliff wants to tell, the story of the brooding, wronged hero. Her infatuation gives him his first real weapon. Catherine, in her selfish cruelty, hands it directly to him. The civilized world, represented by Isabella, is so desperate to romanticize the other that it fails to see the genuine danger it represents. It is a world that reads novels about tragic heroes, but has no idea what to do when one actually walks through the door, intent on burning the house down. And so, by the end of chapter 10, the infiltration is complete. The weapon has been deployed, the queen's identity is fractured, and the inhabitants of the castle are too blind to see the enemy within. The stage is set, not for a romance, but for a demolition. Welcome back to the Art Director's Debrief. In the first half of our analysis, we witnessed Heathcliff's return not as a romantic reunion, but as a strategic infiltration of Thrushcross Grange. Now, in Chapter 11, Emily Brontë moves from psychological setup to open warfare. The events of this chapter are not a series of arguments, they are a masterfully directed sequence of confrontations designed to expose the brutal, destructive nature of the passions involved. Here, Brontë choreographs the complete breakdown of social order. We will analyze how Heathcliff weaponizes Isabella, how the central confrontation becomes an aesthetic statement on the failure of civilization, and finally, how Catherine turns her own body into the ultimate stage for a performance of total, tragic destruction. This is the art of the breakdown. Chapter 11 opens with Nellie's suspicion. She observes Heathcliff not as a welcome guest, but as a predator. Her discovery of him embracing Isabella in the garden confirms her fears, but the true horror is revealed in his subsequent conversation with Catherine. When Catherine confronts him, Heathcliff drops the gentlemanly mask and reveals the chilling logic of his revenge. He tells her, "You are welcome to torture me to death for your amusement. Only allow me to amuse myself in the same style." His plan to court and marry Isabella is this amusement. He will possess her, control her, and through her gain power over the Linden estate and twist the knife of misery in Edgar. This is a profound artistic choice by Brontë. She perverts the most sacred institutions of her society, courtship and marriage, into instruments of hate. Love is not the motivation, it is the ammunition. Heathcliff analyzes Isabella's infatuation with the cold detachment of a general assessing a weakness in the enemy's defenses. He admits to Catherine that the idea of seeing Isabella's degradation is a source of pleasure. This conversation is one of the most important in the novel. It solidifies Heathcliff as a true Byronic anti-hero. He is not misunderstood, he is fully aware of his own monstrosity and embraces it. His torment over losing Catherine does not enable him, it fuels a desire to make the entire world as miserable as he is. His love for Catherine is not a redemptive quality, it is the very engine of his cruelty. By weaponizing Isabella's heart, he declares war not just on Edgar, but on the very concepts of love and honor and decency that define the civilized world he has invaded. And so, by the end of chapter 11, the infiltration is complete. The weapon has been deployed, the queen's identity is fractured, and the inhabitants of the castle are too blind to see the enemy within. The stage is set not for a romance, but for a demolition.
Heathcliff's reaction is just as telling. He, the embodiment of physical power, does not immediately retaliate. He waits, promising a far more calculated and painful revenge later. The artistic statement is clear. Civilized violence is impulsive, ineffective, and ultimately weak. Primal violence is patient, strategic, and far more terrifying. Edgar wins the physical moment by calling his servants, but he loses the war. He has been forced to abandon his own principles and play by Heathcliff's rules, and he has proven to be terrible at it. The fight isn't a resolution. It's a humiliation for Edgar, confirming his impotence in the face of this raw, untamed force. With Heathcliff banished and Edgar having retreated behind the rules he was forced to break, Catherine is left in the center of the wreckage she created. And it is here that she makes her most dramatic and terrifying artistic choice. Unable to control the world around her, she turns her destructive power inward. Her decision to lock herself in her room and starve herself is the novel's pivotal act of psychological warfare. This is not a simple hunger strike. It's a theatrical performance of ultimate rebellion. If she cannot have both her worlds, she will have none, and she will make everyone watch her disappear. By weaponizing her own body, Catherine seizes a perverse form of control. She renders the men powerless. Edgar's authority, Heathcliff's passion, neither can breach her locked door. She punishes Edgar by denying him his wife and threatening the life of his heir. She punishes herself for the choice she made.
Her logic is terrifying. "I'll try if I can forget you," she says of Edgar, deciding that the only way to resolve her internal conflict is to obliterate her own consciousness. "I shall not be at peace," she tells Nellie, "until I am in the churchyard." This is the ultimate expression of the Gothic heroine, trapped not by a physical monster, but by the labyrinth of her own heart. Her self-starvation is the physical manifestation of her spiritual state. She has been starving for her true life, her life with Heathcliff, for years. Now she makes that starvation literal. It is a horrifying, brilliant, and unforgettable artistic choice, cementing Catherine not as a romantic heroine to be pitied, but as a terrifying and tragic force of nature turning its destructive power upon itself. The events of chapters 10 and 11 are the novel's point of no return. Emily Brontë, the art director, has systematically dismantled the illusion of peace at Thrushcross Grange. She has shown us that the polished veneer of a gentleman can be a weapon, that civilized rules are useless against primal passion, and that a heart divided against itself will ultimately choose to self-destruct rather than endure. Catherine's locked door is a symbol for the entire tragedy to come. It is a barrier between worlds, a monument to a catastrophic choice, and the stage for a final, desperate performance. The question is no longer if this world will fall apart, but how completely it will be destroyed by the echoes of that slammed door.